What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I'm going to break down what's going on with SPY, Tesla, the QQQ, and a couple of tickers out there. I'm going to talk about what the technicals are telling us, what the news is doing right now, what's going on with Jerome Powell, and how this is all going to affect the market for today. Before I break anything down about all the levels to watch for, what's going on with SPY, Tesla, the QQQ, and Nvda, let me just mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice. And don't forget about the Moomoo link. The offer ends very soon. Put in $100 and you're guaranteed 5 free stocks with a $100 cash reward. The offer ends very soon. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Anyways, looking at the markets, a little bit down in the pre-market for Tesla, for SPY, for the QQQ, and many tickers out there. The market is still anticipating a more hawkish Powell. We could see this futures were down too, as once again, Powell was being quite hawkish. He said that there could be more rate hikes coming. He said there's a lot of work to be done by the Fed. And I listed a lot of things he said yesterday, but most of what he said was kind of in the middle. And many of the things he said were more on the hawkish side. On top of that, Jerome Powell, he's going to be speaking again today. And what he says will affect the markets once again. So just be ready for that. The futures we're down again. So once again, that could not be the best of news going forward. But anyways, now let's talk about what's happening for today. So for today, we had initial jobless claims that came out. It was at 264,000, which was just below the forecast, very close to it, so nothing too bad. The same as the previous report. Then looking at the jobless claims for the 4-week average, they were above the previous report and a little bit above what the forecast was. So very mixed data overall. Continuing jobless claims were at 1.75 million, which was very close to the forecast too. So all the data is very close to expectations, except for initial jobless claims, which are a little bit low, a little bit lower than the forecast. So very, very mixed data, pretty decent overall. And that's when the market started to just pop just a little bit once this came out, just a tiny bit, but nothing too significant for now. Then we have Bowman giving a speech just 5 minutes before Powell, but the biggest thing for the day is going to be Jerome Powell himself. Jerome Powell is going to be speaking at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. He's going to be speaking in front of the Senate Banking Committee, and what he says is going to be huge for the markets. Let me remind you guys that yesterday when Powell was speaking, the market was trying to hold up, and when he started being asked questions about the banking situation, that's when things made a big U-turn. That's when the market started selling off a lot more. When we started talking about Silicon Valley Bank and being a lot more hawkish and talking more about the Fed's regulations and stuff like that, that's when the market started to sell off more. He's going to be speaking in front of the Senate Banking Committee, so there's an increased probability there could be something else that's said. But at the same time, here's the thing. Normally during the second days that Powell speaks, like he spoke yesterday, now he's going to be speaking again today. He typically doesn't say as many things that are as contentious on the second days. So I'm really hoping the same thing happens, but we'll just have to wait and see on that. With Powell, you never know. And now let's just talk about the market, what's going on with these levels. Looking at SPY on the 1-hour time frame, you're going to be watching the 200 EMA around this 433 level. That's going to be very important. Make sure you watch that carefully. That's going to be our support. Now, you could argue that I didn't draw this out, but there's a possible bullish falling wedge that is forming on SPY. But is it a guarantee? Not necessarily a guarantee. I do think it's very possible for the market to rebound by tomorrow, but let's not solely trade based off that speculation, right? We can't just trade based off that only. We have to look at the current technicals for now, especially when Powell is speaking. And that's what I'm going to do for the time being. For now, looking at SPY, it's around the 434s. If this thing gets a bullish push to the upside, you're going to be watching this 435 as resistance. Break above that, then we have the 436 zone. We have the chop zone at 436.25, 436.5, and many other areas like that. If it breaks to the downside, you're going to be watching support around 433. 433 flat is going to be support. If that fails us, there's 432, which is where we have an imbalance. And if 432 fails us, the next major support is going to be 430. So watch those levels very, very carefully. Let me also add that if it breaks above 436, we have a lot of resistance there. There's that very, very tight zone between 436.25 to 436.65, and we have the 50 EMA at 436.5 right now. So there's going to be a lot of resistance in the 436s if we do try to break all the way up there. It's going to be very tight, but I do believe that if it breaks it, then we have the next resistance at 438 and then 440. So please watch these zones very carefully. With Powell speaking in the morning, we just don't know what he's going to say exactly. So I am anticipating lots of sideways price action, but there may be moments where the market dips a bit because he could say some capricious things. He could say things that the market's just not expecting, and it just is what it is. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, just watch Powell carefully. Watch these levels very, very carefully. Listen to Powell. He's going to be speaking for a couple of hours. The market may be very choppy and see a little bit of downside here and there. And then after he's done speaking, the market may try to rebound a bit. And then we will see what happens from there, because we just have to watch these ranges. And please keep it in the back of your mind that things could change a lot tomorrow based off what these market makers are doing. I will give you guys more insights on that later on. For Tesla, this thing is gapping down again. It's currently fighting in this like 250 area because Tesla got more downgrades again, unfortunately. If Tesla wants to turn bullish, we're going to be watching this thing and try to hold above 250. If it manages to break above it, watch 252.5, 254.25, 255.75, 257.75, followed by 260, and then the 262 area. We also have 261.83 being the 50 EMA, so we have lots of resistance up there. But what's not going to be a good sign is if Tesla breaks below 250. If it breaks 250 in a strong manner, we're most likely going to come all the way down to about 247.5. That's the next major support zone. We also had this important level right here. Right over here, we had this like imbalance around the 247 area, so it could come all the way down there and be attracted to that. Could Tesla be trying to form like a double bottom and then try to get a bounce afterwards? That's also a possibility, right? It is possible that Tesla's trying to form like a double bottom here. We had this one bottom here, it comes up, it comes down to the second bottom, and then bounces. And the technicals currently look kind of bearish on Tesla, so we'll just have to be careful. It really depends more on Powell at this point. Technicals aren't everything. And if 247 fails us, we have the 200 EMA around 246. Then we have 245 after that, 244, 242.75, and 240 as major supports. If 240 fails us, watch 235. I don't see Tesla crashing that bad unless a very bad piece of news comes out. So far, it's not that bad. It's just getting more downgrades, and I do believe that there's a good chance if 250 fails us, we could get a double bottom at like 247, but not a guarantee. We'll just have to wait and see if it bounces from there. But those are the levels to watch for on Tesla. Finally, for AMD, this thing is selling off, looking a little bit weaker, but the thing is, it's very flat in the pre-market. It does have a distributive pattern, so if it breaks the low it made from yesterday, we're going to be watching 108 on it. If it tries to rebound, we're going to be watching this resistance around this like 114, 116, then 118 to 120 zone. All right. For NEO, very, very flat right now, not really doing anything. 9 is going to be support. 8.8, 8.6, 8.5, and beyond. If it pushes up 9, 9.2, 9.5 are going to be resistances. For what else is there? The QQQ. If we're bullish on the QQQ, we're going to be watching this thing push to about 361.25 has some resistance, and then we have 362.25, or I'm sorry, 362.3, that zone right there. If we break above that, there's 363.5 to watch for, then 364.44, then 366 flat. Then we have 368 and 370 after that as resistance. If it breaks down, we're going to be watching the 200 EMA at around 360. If that fails us, watch 357.5, 355, followed by 354, then potentially 350. I don't believe it's going to sink that low today. It is already down quite a bit in the pre-market. We're going to be watching if 360 holds. That's going to be the zone to watch for. In the beginning, it all depends on what Powell says. The market's likely going to be very choppy, in my opinion, and maybe see some moments where it kind of like sells off a bit. He's been pretty hawkish so far, so it is a possibility, but we'll have to just wait and see. Besides that, I just have a couple more to talk about, like Aapl. It's also down in the pre-market. If it breaks down below this 183 support, we're going to be watching 182.67 to 182.5. And that's where the 200 EMA happens to be. If Aapl breaks that, then it's going to come all the way down potentially to about 180 if 182 fails us. If Aapl pushes to the upside, we have resistance at the 50 EMA at 184.3. Break that, then we have 185, 186, 186.5, 187.5 after that. So once again, we have very, very mixed looking technicals on Aapl. There's not much going on. It all depends on what Powell says. If he causes the rug pull, watch like the support zones. If not, watch resistance on Aapl. It all depends on what Powell says. I can't really predict that. For now, Coinbase is still trying to hold up. This thing is still trying to hold up. It's not looking too bad to me. It's going to be affected by Powell in the beginning, but the overall setup is still, it has another imbalance above here, so it's going to likely try to test 60 still. It doesn't look like it's done just yet, But for now, Powell is going to impact this and may see some downside inside of his price action. So we'll just watch that and then we'll see where it goes from there. It could still push up later on after Powell is done with. For Nvidia, it's a little bit down in the pre-market. It's at the 425 support. That fails, let's watch 420. If that fails, let's watch 414, 409, and etc. If this thing manages to base around like 420 again, tries to bounce, it could try to push up for 430, 435, 440, 445, and then 450 as resistance. We're going to be watching if this thing forms kind of like this head and shoulders like pattern, or if this thing is getting ready for a back test at this 435 area. I think it's very possible it's going to try to make its way up, but before that happens, we're going to likely see lots of choppy price action, maybe even some downside because of Powell, but it could get a rebound later on. But until then, the technicals look a little bit bearish on Nvidia for now. It could still see some downside, so we're just going to watch it carefully and see what happens with Powell. Last but not least, for Meta, Meta is still just starting to break down a little bit below where this wedge was, unless I try to adjust this. It is breaking down a little bit right now. Could get a back test here and then just continue to drop. Watch support at 278, 276, 275, 272, 270, and 269. For resistance, you're going to be watching this 280 as resistance. If it breaks that, there's 282.5. We have 285 to 286, 287.5, and then 290 after that. For now, it's starting to break down just a little bit below this wedge. Could try to make its way up. It's going to likely remain down for some time because of Powell, and then could make its way up later on, but we'll just have to wait and see. It all depends on Powell and etc. Anyways, guys, thank you all for listening. Have a great day. Market to the moon as the long term is still incredibly bright, and peace out.